Welcome to another Breeders' Cup edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipse, and today I have the special pleasure of being joined by Matt Shifman here in person, live in living color in Louisville. Welcome, Matt.
It's great to be here, Brian. Finally, it's great to be here.
Finally, we're Thursday. We're one day away from Breeders' Cup starting. 2 wonderful days of World Championship racing, 13 Breeders' Cup races. And folks, we're going to do a little bit, something a little bit different today. Something that I hope you find fun. We had fun etching this out. It's going to be prop bets, easy for me to say. Prop bets of Breeders' Cup outcomes, and we want to jump in with who is the most likely Breeders' Cup winner coming from Europe. Matt, you have some thoughts on this. Who do you say it's going to be?
I think it's going to be Golden Horn. Golden Horn is maybe one of the 2 best horses in the world right now. His performance in the Arc was stellar. His performance in almost every race all year has been stellar. I think he towers over the field in the turf. Golden Horn will win his race.
Not so fast, my friend. You're forgetting who's in the Breeders' Cup turf this year. There's a special Illinois bred, the Pizza Man, that might be ready to give Golden Horn a run for his money. For that reason, I'm going to go with LEGATISSIMO. LEGATISSIMO is one of the best 3-year-old fillies in the country, in the world that is. She's here now, and I think she stands over the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. Frankly, there's some nice fillies in there, but the competition is not as stern as Golden Horn will find in the turf. LEGATISSIMO really should win the filly and mare turf this year. Matt, why don't we jump into another one? You want to take it?
Sure. We're going to talk about which 2-year-old is going to have a better performance in their race. Who do you think?
Grade 1 winning juveniles, I think it's going to be Brody's Cause. Brody's Cause is just a come from out of the clouds horse who's really fired good shots at both Churchill Downs and Keeneland this last 2. I think even if he doesn't run his best race, Matt, he's gonna rally up into the picture, whether that be 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I think Brody's Cause is a great opportunity to finish high in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Yeah, we've talked a number of times about how interesting a juvenile is this year with a lot of horses that have the potential to make that kind of move. But I'm going with my girl. I'm going with Rachel's Valentina, and not just because she's my girl. I think that the juvenile fillies is a 2-horse race. I think it's Songbird. I think it's Rachel's Valentina, and at the very worst, Rachel's Valentina is going to finish 2nd.
Yeah, and just to be clear, folks, that was a either or, Brody's Cause or Rachel's Valentina. We weren't including Songbird in the mix there. Brody's Cause, Rachel's Valentina. I say Brody's Cause. Matt says Rachel's Valentina. We're going to jump right into the next prop bet, Breeders' Cup prop bet here on HorseCenter. Remember, we're brought to you by Keeneland Select. Which trainer will win more Breeders' Cup races over the next couple days, Matt? Is it Marcassi or is it Todd Pletcher? Who do you think?
Well, that's an interesting matchup because you're matching up Marcassi, who hasn't had a Breeders' Cup win yet, against Todd Pletcher, who has 7 career Breeders' Cup wins, got 8 starters this year. He's got Liam's map.
Pletcher's had more chances over the years than Cassie.
There is no question. There's no question about that, but come on. Pletcher's got Liam's map in, and I think if you ask people about the most likely winner on the card, I think a lot of people are going to say Liam's map. I think Liam's map is almost a sure thing in the dirt mile. Along with that, Pletcher's got some other nice horses too, but I think Liam's map will be enough for Pletcher.
Enough for Pletcher. Pletcher, his cup always runneth over. I'm of the belief that Liam's map is beatable, and I think he very well may be beaten the dirt mile. I really like the Marcassi lineup this year. He's got 5 or 6 horses only as compared to Pletcher's long list, but I think they're all strong horses. Aeroforce and Conquestadillo both have big chances in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. If I had to pick one to be my top pick, very well maybe Aeroforce, but certainly Conquestadillo, the rallier from Canada, can win this. Tepin, you gotta love Tepin. If she runs the race she did in the First Lady, right back here in the Breeders' Cup Mile, I think she can beat the boys. Catch a Glimpse, she is my top pick. Now that's a wide open race, the juvenile turf fillies. but Ketchup Glimpse, big winner than Natama, my top pick for Mark Casse. And then in the juvenile, Conquest Big E, a lot of people love this big, beautiful gray mat as an up-and-comer. And at the moment, it looks like Siding Spring is going to draw in to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, giving Casse his 6th entrant and a pretty strong group, if I do say so myself. Yeah,
and in defense of the Casse stable, he's started a lot of young horses over the years and taking a shot with a lot of them. So he really has probably his strongest hand this year to get his first Breeders' Cup win.
Yeah, first Breeders' Cup win I think is going to happen, and don't be surprised if Casse not only gets his first, but he gets multiple this year. All right, Matt, let's keep this thought rolling. We're going to go from trainer to jockey. We're talking Ryan Moore and IRAD ORTIZ as two of our favorite riders for this year's Breeders' Cup, and I am on IRAD ORTIZ Jr. He's only won one Breeders' Cup race to date, but with a Friday that includes my top pick in the distaff, got lucky. Followed by a couple of very interesting odds horses in the turf races, Camelot Kitten to come from the clouds, and Price to Perfection, a nice maiden winner at Belmont. And then Saturday he keeps rolling with a bunch of horses who have a shot, maybe no favorites, but Stephanie's Kitten, Lady Shipman, Stall Walking Dude, Cocked and Loaded, Slumber, and then in the big one, Keen Ice. I think IRAD ORTIZ is likely to have a winner on both days.
I'm going to go with Ryan Moore, and by the way, I used to love years ago when they had the jockey bet at in the Breeders' Cup. It never paid a lot, but I always got a thrill out of it. Ryan Moore, what more can you say about a jockey this year in terms of being a big race rider? He has had a phenomenal year. He had 9 winners at Royal Ascot this year, which totally blew away the record. I mean, it used to be good if they got 3 or 4 winners. He won every big race over there, and he's got some pretty good mounts, pretty good connections here at Keeneland this year.
This is not Royal Ascot, Matt. Don't forget what ORTIZ did at Saratoga, your neck of the woods this year.
You are absolutely right, but Ryan Moore, as we were talking before, you brought up Legatissimo. That's Ryan Moore. He's on Found in the turf. Found has been running really well. Also ran in the Arc, but that's a good angle in the Breeders' Cup turf. Also rans in the Arc have done extremely well. Horse came from back from that race and ran big at Ascot a couple weeks later. He's got a mount. He's got several other mounts. I think Ryan Moore is going to keep doing what he's been doing, and that's win big races.
Well, you might have the best jockey in the world. We'll see if he can do it in the U.S. in the Breeders' Cup, Matt. Good discussion there. Who will go off the lowest odds in this year's Breeders' Cup? I think this is an interesting question that just got a little bit more interesting with the unfortunate scratch of Beholder from the Classic. Is American Pharaoh the one to be the lowest favorite out of all 13 races? Possibly the Europeans we already talked about. Golden Horn in the turf, Legatissimo in the filly and mare turf, and then of course Liam's Map I think is one you have to talk about in the dirt mile. Who do you like, Matt?
Yeah, I think before this morning it was a little bit more wide open, but I think with the scratch of Beholder now, American Pharaoh is just going to be an overwhelming favorite, and probably deservedly so.
Okay, I'm going to take a little different take, as usual, from my HorseCenter partner here. Golden Horn, Legatissimo, I don't think the Europeans will be pounded quite as much as the 2 Americans. I think Matt is onto one of the 2 favorites, American Pharaoh, but I think the biggest favorite of all will be Liam's Map, the Pletcher horse in the dirt mile. Just because of the competition American Pharaoh has to deal with, honor code, tonalist, frosted keen ice. I think there's certainly more competition for him in the Classic than the dirt mile. So I think Liam's Map might drift all the way down to 3 to 5. My pick for the lowest favorite of the weekend. All right, which 2-year-old race will produce the faster time? I think we can go through this in faster than they will run the races, Matt.
Yeah, I think so. I think we both agree that it's going to be the juvenile fillies. We've got Songbird in there, who is also maybe should have been considered for the biggest favorite because she's going to be well supported, but Songbird has dominated, and it looks like she could do that again. She's going to go out front, probably without much contention, probably put up good fractions, and should be able to run a nice pace, as opposed to the juvenile in which we talked about, which is a very different kind of juvenile this year than other years, which I think is going to slow it down, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think this year's juvenile horses are a little less precocious than in years past. There's less sprinter speed in the juvenile this year. That's a good thing if we're looking ahead to next year's classics. I think the juvenile horses here, a lot of them translate and will come back and be horses we're watching in the spring, which is great. However, probably a slower pace than Songbird, and the juvenile fillies will run. Yeah, I think Songbird is probably the most developed 2-year-old that we're going to see this weekend, and I like her chances to win the juvenile fillies and to run faster, just as she did in California in her last start, running clearly faster than Nyquist did while he won the front runner. All right, Matt, we're moving right along in these Breeders' Cup prop bets. We're brought to you by Keeneland Select today, folks. Hope you're having fun with these. Which race will produce the higher priced winner? And Matt and I thought about these races a lot, and I kind of like a long shot winner for the Breeders' Cup Sprint, believe it or not. And that may sound odd because there are some really solid favorites in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, Private Zone and of course Run Happy. I think both of them are deserving favorites, co-favorites in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Without each other in the race, I think it would be a whole lot easier for them. But I see a fast pace, folks, in this Breeders' Cup Sprint. I think we might see a 43 flat kind of half mile in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Private Zone, Run Happy don't really want to be off the lead at all. I think it's going to hurt both of their chances. I think one of the ralliers may be Kobe's Back, maybe Saludos Amigos. I think we're going to have a double-digit winner because I think they're all double digits after Private Zone and Run Happy. So when those two knock each other out, I like a long shot to pick up the pieces and win the sprint.
Yeah, that's an interesting analysis. I'm not sure if both of those speeds are going to quit, but if they do, you're right, it could very well be bombs away. I'm going to go with the juvenile turf here because that is such a wide open race. It's a race where the Europeans really don't dominate like in some of the other races. It's a race with a big field that is, the winner is going to have to get a good trip. Anything can happen with all those babies in the air. We've got a lot of American horses that don't have much experience, and who knows what could happen. Rough trips, someone could come flying on the outside. I see maybe $30 horse winning that race.
Traditionally, that's happened in several years. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf producing a price in the win spot. All right, Matt, we're having fun with these prop bets. We've done a bunch already. Let's get down to some real simple ones here. We're going head to head. Let's talk about Friday's feature, the distaff. I'm going to go with my top pick. Who are you going with in the distaff?
I'm going to go with my top pick in the distaff also, which is I'm a Chatterbox.
Mano a mano. Matt likes I'm a Chatterbox. I do like I'm a Chatterbox quite a bit. She's not my top pick. My top pick, as I mentioned earlier, is Got Lucky. I think she's going to pick up the pieces. And regardless whether she wins or not, I like her to win, but if she doesn't, she's going to be rallying up into the picture. So I think in this head-to-head, who's going to finish higher, I like Got Lucky's chances over I'm a Chatterbox.
Yeah, I think this is the year for Larry Jones to get his first Breeders' Cup win. That's hard to believe that Larry Jones hasn't won a Breeders' Cup race, but it's true. I'm a Chatterbox is breaking on the rail. She's going to have a ground-saving trip. She sits in a nice stalking position. Her last few races have been really good. I think it's going to set up nicely for I'm a Chatterbox to make a nice run, win the race, or certainly finish ahead of Got Lucky.
Well, from a rooting standpoint, I wouldn't mind seeing I'm a Chatterbox win it all, and she does have a real shot, but I think the older fillies might get her here. Got Lucky down the lane. All right, Matt, the big one. Head-to-head in the Classic. We can't really throw American PHAROAH in because that wouldn't be fair to this discussion. We want a kind of a more evenly matched head-to-head. Tonalist, Keen Ice, who do you like better?
3-year-old versus older horse. Horse getting better. The consistent performer, Tonalist. I'm going to take Keen Ice.
You're going to take Keen Ice? After the Travers, I can't blame you. But Tonalist, folks, is a true 1.25 mile horse, maybe even farther than 1.25 miles. I expect him to run a very good race away from Belmont. I think this race sets up pretty well from him. I think he's going to sit more to the middle of the pack and not be too far out of it this time. I like Keen Ice, but I'd like Tonalist just a little bit better in this head-to-head.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Tonalist is definitely a 1.25 mile horse, but I think Keen Ice did pretty well in the 1.25 mile Travers. Keen Ice is getting better and better all year long. I'm pretty confident that Keen Ice is going to make his move regardless of what happens in the race. He's going to pick up horses, and I think Keen Ice is going to do just enough to beat Tonalist. Maybe 3rd place for Keen Ice, 4th place for Tonalist.
As long as Frosted beats them both. Folks, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed our Breeders' Cup edition of HorseCenter. This is our last pre-Breeders' Cup edition. It was prop bets. It was fun. We were brought to you today by Keeneland Select. Thank you to our talented producer, Ember Marr. Thank you for joining me here today, Matt.
My pleasure, and good luck to everybody on your Breeders' Cup wagers.
We'll see you next week with the analysis of the Breeders' Cup. Can't wait, folks. See you then.